Hi everyone, welcome back. So today we are going to attempt a summary question. So I love doing the summary question. Why? Is because, well, many of my students all this while has been telling me in class, like, teacher, this is like the best part to like obtain the highest possible marks for like minimal effort. There is some truth to that, but however, this still doesn't undermine, of course, the skill that you are acquiring here as a student. The summary skill is crucial. You would realize this when you are in perhaps university. And I think it's worthwhile to explore why there is this summary question in the 0500 paper to begin with. I think one of the most crucial skills for the sake of time, I'll just cut to the chase. Well, it's about synthesizing. It's important for students to have the ability to synthesize information, to understand what is the question, and then to understand, to have the ability to go through a text or to go through numerous texts when perhaps later in uni, and be able to extract information that you would need to answer your question and to put it into a form that is rational, logical, so therefore to synthesize, all right? So of course, this would look familiar for some of you, those of you who are taking the 0500, this is the summary question. So just very quickly, the question, according to the text, what advice is given to help with the first year of teaching? So this is the question. Advice given to help with first year of teaching. You must use, this is your instruction, you must use continuous form, not note form, and use your own words as far as possible. Your summary should be no more than 120 words. Up to 10 marks are available for the content of your answer and up to 5 marks for the quality of your writing. So back to the question. So we know that the question is to pick out advice given to those who are in first year of teaching. Right? And then your instructions are continuous form. So what does that actually mean? I would explain this to my kids in class. It's not about taking away the numbers when you have point forms 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to remove them and then just to string it together into a paragraph. It should be a coherent paragraph, right? So not just as simplistic as just doing away with the numbers and then writing them one after another. You have to synthesize. So see where information should be grouped together and then putting them together in a coherent manner, right? And then also to use your own words as far as possible. My kids would tell me, well, it's to paraphrase. They're not wrong. To use your own words as far as possible, not too mechanical as to like, oh, this word replaced with a synonym and whatnot sort of thing, but to digest the information and to think about how to express it without changing its meaning completely, all right? All right, so you do have to adhere to the word count quite strictly. And of course, yes, like one of my kids mentioned, it is a fair bit of marks to actually obtain here with minimal effort, all right? So shall we begin? So again, reminder, the question is to the advice given to help with first year of teaching, all right? So this is the passage. A job you'll grow into. A teacher answers her friend's request for advice. Dear Mark, thank you for your letter. I'm glad you asked for advice. You're right. My first year was tough too, but teaching is a job you'll grow into. Cheer up. It will get better. Most teachers would agree their first year is the hardest, simply because they're not ready for all that will be thrown at them. Teaching is a rewarding career, but there are times when it can be extremely challenging, and you need to accept that. There are other things that can make this first year go more smoothly. So this, of course, is a clue. There are other things that can make it go more smoothly. So obviously, there are some points in here. So what is the advice? So the first advice would be, it will get better, right? And that teaching, though rewarding and challenging, you would need to accept. Knowing that it's challenging is one thing, but the advice is you need to accept, right? So there are 2 points in this. One, it would get better. And the second advice is accept that it is challenging. Moving on, Your first year is always going to be demanding, especially demanding. So before you begin each day, be as prepared as you possibly can. Set up your room properly. Look around. Is there anything anywhere that would distract you if you were a student? Very good advice. So what's the advice here? It's to be as prepared as possible, setting up the room, right? The classroom. Moving on, as you've found out already, teaching isn't a 9 to 5 job. Added to that, it's going to take a newly qualified teacher more time to prepare than it would someone more experienced. If you're not arriving early and staying late on most days, it's likely you won't be fully prepared for everything required of you. Sounds more like a warning than anything else, but yes, there is advice here. So it would be that you need to be ready for long hours. Staying late and arriving early and staying late, all right? Okay, moving on. Another key component that can take a lot of time is organization. So that's essentially really as otherwise with so many variables you need to take account of. You can't possibly keep up with everything. Organization and preparation are linked. If you aren't organized, it's difficult to be adequately prepared. Prepare 2 hours material for every hour of actual teaching. You need to avoid that dreaded 10 minutes at the end when you're wondering, what do I do now? So what is the advice here? This was advice given to me a long time ago when I first started teaching as well, yeah, which is to prepare materials. What amount of material? The ratio of 2 hours material for every hour of actual teaching. So that's the next advice, right? Moving on, building healthy working relationships take a lot of effort, I know. Early on though, teachers need to forge positive relationships with administrators and other staff members. Parents are equally important allies, something to remember. Then there's how your students feel about you too, which will impact on your overall effectiveness. There is a definite middle ground that a good teacher finds that lies between being too lenient and too strict. Most students respect teachers who are fair and keep a sense of humor. So this paragraph is obviously advice on relationships that teachers would have. So one would be with your colleagues and also the other with your students, right? So the advice here are positive relationship with your colleagues, the administrators, and also the staff, to make parents your allies, and also your students, to find middle ground with them, and to be fair and have a sense of humor. So can you see how you can synthesize the information here? This paragraph offers content on relationships that teachers have to maintain. So that with schools, colleagues, and also with teachers, and also with students. With colleagues, teachers, staff, with parents, and also with students. All right. Okay, moving on. Everyone starts with their own unique philosophy, their idea of how they're going to teach. I think it only took me a few hours to realize that I was going to have to make adjustments. Having a backup plan when trying something new is vital. Even the most well-planned, organized activity can fail. Being prepared to move on to another activity is necessary, is always an excellent idea. So here, I see it as kind of like random. I mean, like now, well, it's something that you can synthesize, of course, with something that appeared in front. So this is about preparation, right? So this is something that you can use together with some of the information that we found in front and earlier in the passage, which is to have a backup plan when trying something new, right? So the idea that you need to prepare, and you need to be willing to let go of an idea if it doesn't work, and then just move on to your backup plan, right? Okay, so next, to be positive too. Most new teachers don't have the luxury of being picky with their first job either. They take what's available and run with it, no matter how insecure they are with the curriculum. However, each grade or level is different, so it's essential you become an expert in the curriculum that you'll be teaching, and quickly. Great teachers know their curriculums inside out. They are continuously looking for ways to improve how they teach and interest students in that material. Perhaps there's a more experienced colleague you could ask for help. Okay, good advice. So very obvious one, of course, would be you need to be an expert in what you are teaching. You need to continuously look for ways to improve. So this will fall under the advice for development. Like to further develop as a teacher, you would need to be an expert in what you are teaching and also to always look for ways to improve, right? All right, moving on. I find keeping a journal useful. It's reassuring to look back and reflect on how far I've come since those early days when I thought I could change the world. Now I think I'm a bit more realistic and take account of my students when planning activities for class. So what do we have here? The advice is to, I think this would be like something personal, like for a teacher to keep sane. So to have a journal and also to be over time to be realistic with what they want to achieve. I think about this in a realistic manner, right? Realistic manner. As a young teacher, of course, with all that enthusiasm, one would want to, try to accomplish as much as possible, and therefore advise to plan as much as possible as well. But over time, for sustainability and also for longevity in the teaching career, of course, it's important for teachers to adjust accordingly, so to prevent burnout, right? So you could put these bits of information together about the journal and about being more realistic, but I see an opportunity to synthesize this information here about being realistic with something that appeared earlier in the passage. You'll see the sample that I have for you later. Okay, so don't be too hard on yourself. Moving on, every teacher has a first year. There are bound to be moments where you feel overwhelmed. It is necessary to understand that it will improve though. Are you taking care of yourself physically, eating and sleeping well? You're only human, Anyway, let me know how it goes next week. Keep smiling, Jenna. Okay, so what do we have here? Very good advice. So it started out in the earlier paragraph about advice to the teacher in a personal aspect, right? Like keeping a journal for, I guess, your sanity and whatnot. So therefore, this one is about the physical aspect, right? So to keep yourself healthy physically, okay? All right, so those are the points. So we're moving on now. How do we actually put all this content that we have acquired from the passage to answer the question? All right, remember the question is about advice given to first year teachers. Okay, so this is an example that I had written or that I have typed. So remember to keep to be very concise, all right, because we only have like 120 words, okay? So these go straight into the point. This is advice, right? So these are advice to survive the first year of teaching. It begins with being positive and accept that it will be challenging. So two of my points are in this second sentence here. One should be ready for long hours as preparation takes long. So I'm synthesizing it here. I'm putting quite a bit of information together. So ready for the long hours, and then such as preparing 2 hours material for a 1 hour lesson and having a backup plan when trying something new. So I've chosen to synthesize this bit of information from later in the passage with the ones in front, with the ones that appeared earlier. All right, therefore, to be organized, do prepare the classroom before time. Teachers must realize that managing relationships with colleagues and parents help ease work, while with students, find middle ground, be fair, and have a sense of humor. So over time, be more realistic about lessons. For development, teachers should work towards becoming an expert and find ways to improve class performance. Finally, keep a journal and keep healthy to survive the year. All right, so that's an example that I had prepared for this summary question. So I hope that this is useful. I hope that students also understand why this question appears in the 0500, because the synthesizing skill is definitely very, very important. All right, so happy revising, everyone. Keep trying more questions, and all the best.